Hey everybody, I'm just going to, this is Professor Finn, just giving you a quick overview of labs and how they're going to run this year. For some of you, this is your freshman year, so maybe you don't have as set expectations about what lab is like, and for others, you've taken labs in other departments, and so maybe you do have some idea of what a lab would be like, and so this lab might be a little bit different than what you expect. So we have little sounds of summer outside the window, fans and lawnmowers, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Okay, so what is the point of physics labs? So different departments and different faculty may have different answers to this question, right? We could emphasize the scientific method, teach good experimental techniques. Sometimes labs are designed just to reinforce the lecture material. And also in lab, we will be doing some writing. So one of our goals is to develop good scientific writing. So the first two are points that are a little bit different in this lab, and that we're emphasizing the scientific method and have you actually utilizing the scientific method. And part of that actually is getting to the chance and opportunity to design your own experiments. So previously in general physics, we had labs that were a little more structured, gave you more specific instructions. So you were sort of following, it's not unlike following a cooking recipe where you would follow all these steps, and at the end you get the product that you're expecting, that you may know the answer to before you even start, right? Like maybe it's testing does this force, the force that you apply to an object proportional to acceleration, right? So in class, you may have already studied that equation, and so this would be a way of just kind of confirming and experimentally reinforcing what you did in class. So like I said, much of the time you already know the answer. You're not really emphasizing the scientific method necessarily because somebody else has kind of designed the experiment for you. You're not thinking about how could I, if I have this problem, how could I design an experiment to try and answer this question I have? So the new design of the labs is emphasizing much more the design process. And so we'll be talking a lot about experimental skills. How do we make measurements carefully? How many times should we be repeating measurements? How do we assess the uncertainty of our measurements? All these kinds of things. And then also just the practicality of how do you construct an experiment and make it as precise a measurement as you can given the equipment that you have. So with that, you will have less guidance in the instructions. So we are going to have you read the lab handouts before you come to class, and you'll see that they're pretty brief. It gives you a chance to have your own input in how you are going to address whatever question or problem that the lab is introducing to you. What goes along with that is that you will inevitably make mistakes, and that's okay. Those are opportunities to learn. One of the things that we hope this approach will do is build your frustration tolerance. And so what that means, right, is, if you get frustrated, something's not working, a lot of times when people are starting this kind of work, they just want to give up. Doesn't work, I'm done. But you have to sort of, take a deep breath, reassess, take a step back, maybe a new perspective. You can always get some input from your lab instructor, and how can you work your way around whatever problem it is that's causing frustration. In some of the labs, you're going to have 2 weeks to do them. So you might come in, do it once, again, with some thought beforehand about about how you're going to design the lab, how you're going to collect the data. You actually do it, and then you'll have some time to look at your data, see how the results turned out, and you may decide, gosh, I should have done this a different approach to it, and I want to do it again. And so we actually will kind of build this into the structure, where you'll have 1 week to do it, some time to reflect on it, to look at how the experiment turned out, and then another week to actually go back and try and refine the experiment and improve your measurements. So a lot of the ways that we're grading, it's not just like a multiple choice, plug in, did I get the right answer? That's not what we're emphasizing here. We're talking about building these experimental skills and design skills. And so the question is, did you get the best answer that you could? Have you used the equipment effectively? Have you made the proper connections between your measurements and the underlying physical principle? So again, it's not nothing to stress about if you were measuring the acceleration of gravity and you got 12 instead of 9.8. But maybe you were doing it with, we only gave you equipment that would allow you to measure it to that type of accuracy. So, okay. So for these labs, which we're calling design labs, the write-ups will vary for each lab, but you will be given details on what exactly we expect you to turn in for each lab. And as I mentioned before, we do expect you to read the lab before you come to class. So we'll be doing this through Perusall. You'll be in a group with your lab partners so that you can be discussing as you're reading through the Perusall, the assignment in Perusall, you can be discussing ideas for how you might actually structure the lab and make your measurements. We will have one formal lab write-up during the semester, and the key to this is that you will write it with all the parts that will specify, like an introduction and procedure and your data and results and all that. You'll turn it in, get feedback from your instructor, and then do a rewrite. And that rewrite process is really important for both improving your writing and the outcome of the lab. So just as a warning, labs will not always be in sync with the lecture, but that's okay. We will, if it's something that we're doing in lab before you've seen the material in lecture, we'll give you a little bit of reading to give you the background information that you need. So modifications for what's happening with COVID. So if any of you are in my lecture, we're going to be running this in a similar way for lab. So that lab will be divided into two parts. We'll have session A that goes 2:30 to 3:50, and then session B is 4:10 to 5:30. So I will split the class in half, and within that, the half that you're meeting with, you'll have a lab group that will be your lab group throughout the semester. So you'll be working with the same people in that group. So because we are having less time in class, we're going to try and push some of the work outside of class. And I'll show you in a minute some of the things that we're expecting you to do for the first 3 weeks. Okay, also to minimize our chance of spreading COVID in the lab, we actually have lab kits that Dr. Hassel has put together for everybody. So each person actually has their own, all the equipment that they will need to conduct all the labs, and you will take that for the semester. We'll probably give that out in the third week of class unless we decide to give it out during lecture, but I'll keep you posted on that. Some of the stuff that you have in the lab box we don't expect to return, but some of it we do. So there's a buggy that you'll get, and a C-clamp, and spring scales, and the balls in particular are things that we would want you to return at the end of the semester. Everyone should have their own laptop, so please let me know as soon as possible if you don't have a laptop. There's the potential to fund some equipment for people who don't have what they need to be functioning at 100% in this, sort of hybrid online formats that a lot of our classes are in. So please let me know, and we can try and help you out with any issues you have in terms of laptops and accessibility for them. You will be making measurements on your own, and so I just wanted to point out one app that you might want to put on your phone called PHYS. It can be used for timing and a bunch of other different things. It's actually just kind of fun to play with. So it's free. You can download that and check it out. Logger Pro is also a piece of software that we'll be using. We have a site license so that you can download that on your laptop, and I'll give you more instructions as we go on that one. But that's one piece of software where you could actually take a video or upload a video and do an analysis with that software. So we'll be using that at some point. Okay, and then finally, I just wanted to give you an overview of what the first 3 weeks will look like. So the first week of lab starts the very first day, August 24th. We will not be meeting during lab period, okay, during that week. What you will be doing instead, we have an introductory material, including this video that you're watching right now. We have an assessment survey for you to complete that will be in Canvas, and then also in Canvas is an assignment called Basic Plotting with Python, and I have a few introductory videos for you to watch, and then some exercises for you to try and complete in the Python notebook. And for that, we'll be using the Google's Colab environment. Okay, for the second week, we are going to do an analysis. Basically, it's a lab that focuses on uncertainty and measurement uncertainty. And so before coming to lab for the second week, you'll do the reading assignment, which is just going to be the lab write-up. You will actually do a lot of the measurements that we need for the analysis before lab. So, and that involves watching a video and timing how long it takes two different people to throw the ball back and forth to each other. Okay, so you watch the video, do the timing, and enter the data in the spreadsheet. So during the lab meeting period of that week of August 31st, we were going to meet over Zoom, and I will use the breakout rooms to put you together with your lab group. So that'll be the first time you'll actually meet each other there. And then you'll work together with your lab group to finish the analysis with Python. And again, it'll all be sort of outlined in detail when you see the lab. And then I will be available. I'll kind of bounce around between the breakout rooms to help you guys with any questions that you have. So finally, the week of September 7th, that's our third week. That's the first time we'll meet in person in lab and go with this session A, session B schedule. So for that week, there'll be a pre-lab reading assignment. You'll be working with your group ahead of time to draft your procedure of how you're going to execute the lab. We're not really supposed to hand out paper, so we're asking you to either print a piece of graph paper, or if you have graph paper, just bring some to lab. And I'll post a link on the lab as it gets closer, so you have there are places where you can just download graph paper, or if you just Google it, I'm sure you can find it as well. So that week is when I'm planning to distribute the lab kits if we haven't done that already. And then during the lab, again, it's going to be, a half period. So you really got to come in sort of, having already worked out with your group what you're going to do, and then start your measurements and take any data that you need for the buggy lab. Okay, so that's it. Please let me know if you have any questions.